Welcome on in to the Big Play Cleveland Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. No Gabriella Cruz. I'm Nick Padone, Chris McNeil. As we put to rest another Cleveland Browns season as they fall to 3-11 after a loss on Sunday. Chris, there was no Taylor Swift. She didn't show up. The Cleveland Browns didn't show up either as they lost 21-7 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was a game where the Browns didn't really show much effort, much fight, or much reason to care about the rest of these three games. And I kind of can't believe that we have to come in here and do this 3 more times this year.
It's rough. And we didn't think sitting here at the beginning of the season we would be talking about the Browns having only 3 wins at this point. I know that there are a lot of people, myself included, who came in very optimistic. Despite the fact we knew we were limited at quarterback, we knew there'd be problems, we thought that somehow this team was going to be somewhat successful, even in a very tough division. And right now we sit with only 3 wins, and really the prospects, not very good. You lose Nick Chubb. You got Myles Garrett out there getting poked in the eye. Just bad news after bad news on just a rainy, nasty day. And Nick, I'm very happy I didn't go. I sent my daughter instead to the game, and she was out there in hopes of seeing Taylor Swift, and obviously Taylor didn't show up. Sounds like there was a little bit of action here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Yeah. People anticipating seeing her private jet fly into here.
There were some camera crews and some people that wasted their Sunday mornings posted up here at Burke Lakefront Airport, your daughter included, Chris, waiting and hoping to see Taylor Swift, and it never happened. And that was kind of a precursor of what was to follow for the Browns. And we're going to get into it on today's show. You know, we've obviously got our normal segment, Cleveland headlines, fill in the blank. We're going to talk some Buckeyes. I'm very excited for today's featured interview with the host of the Buckeye Show, Timmy Hall, down there in Columbus on 97.1, will join us to break down the Ohio State versus Tennessee matchup. But Chris, it was so disappointing because it was one of those games where from Jump Street, you knew it wasn't going to be the Browns' day when they dropped the punt to start the game, and then you give Patrick Mahomes a 30-yard short field to work with, went right in, scored the touchdown, and then the bottom of the bag got just kind of let out from there. And it was just a game that never really felt as close as it was, despite the defense giving them opportunities to stay in that thing.
6 turnovers right there. You cannot turn the ball over like that, whether you're Jameis Winston, whether you're even Nick Chubb, stalwarts like that. He had a fumble. He had a ball go right through his arms. So it's unfortunate, and we see this a lot with the Browns. Unfortunately, we've seen it a lot with the Browns where when it rains, it really rains. And you start seeing just problems evolve all over the place, even in places like Nick Chubb that you had kind of relied upon for so long and being that model of consistency. Now, in this game, like you said, defense played okay. I mean, they really did. They kept us in this ball game. It was only 21-7. And really in the second half, although it didn't feel like we really had a shot, the scoreboard said that we did, and we just couldn't do anything from an offensive perspective, and that's going to be the problem here going forward. Quarterback situation is a mess in Cleveland. It's not going to get solved in the next 3 games, Nick. It may not get solved in this offseason, so God help us all right now as Browns fans.
It's crazy to think there's 3 games left in this season. There's 17 games next year. I mean, we could have 20 more games of wandering the QB desert. We'll talk about the quarterback situation and more what's to come. Cleveland headlines. Don't go anywhere. More of the Big Play Cleveland Show right after this. Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. No Gabriella Cruz. I'm Nick Padone hosting with you guys today. Lucky to be joined alongside my man, Chris Reflog McNeil. Cleveland headlines time on the Big Play Cleveland Show. We appreciate you guys tuning in to the Big Play Sports Network every week. Make sure to download that Big Play Sports Network app on iOS, on Roku. Keep it posted with all of your favorite Big Play shows across our entire network. Got some great content out there for you. Download it today. Chiefs beat the Browns 21-7. Jameis Winston, Chris, benched after that 3-interception performance. Nick Chubb fumbled, then Nick Chubb broke his foot, and his season is over. Was Stipe Miocic smashing the guitar the highlight of Sunday's loss, against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Can we do away with that, by the way? The whole smashing the guitar. This isn't homecoming week for the Cleveland Browns. This isn't a pep rally. I'm kind of done with that. We all know the association of Cleveland with the Rock Hall. We know we got to get a guitar into just about everything we do. But the guitar smash, for me, that has completely jumped the shark. We can move on past it. Stipe, anybody else, I think we've kind of gotten to the point where who else are you going to get to do this thing? So with the team not performing and obviously not responding well to these pregame festivities, let's just kind of do away with some of them and kind of restart and refresh in this offseason, not come back with the guitar smash.
Like anything, I feel like the guitar smash plays a lot better when the team looks good. When you trot out a 3-11 product that goes on to get embarrassed by the two-time, defending Super Bowl champs, who smashed the guitar at the beginning of the game becomes just a blip in the news. What'd you make of Nick Chubb's season coming to an end? I was surprised. Kevin Stefanski was defeated at the podium. That's putting it nicely after that game. And you have to imagine that one of the factors that contributed to that is losing Nick Chubb again, his second consecutive season with a season-ending injury. I guess if you want to look at this glass half full, broken bones can heal. Yeah. If anything, it prevents him from getting more seriously hurt in the 3 games that remain for the Cleveland Browns. But the run game never looked right for the Browns this entire season. I can't believe that losing Nick Chubb the rest of the way is going to help anything. Not to mention, Chris, he's a free agent. So it's going to be another offseason of trying to figure out, do you bring Nick Chubb back? What's the value there? You're probably looking at drafting a running back at some point as well. Again, the Titanic had a leak, and now it's going to be without Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I was surprised on social media the number of people who just assume that Nick Chubb is going to be back next year, and that is not fait accompli. I mean, especially with this front office, the money ball aspect of what they try and do, I think they look long and hard at Nick Chubb. And let me make this clear, too. I like Nick Chubb. I think everybody in this town, he is the heart and soul of this town. So if you're going to make a move like that, then it better be for more than just dollars and cents here, because he has been just the beating heart of the Cleveland Browns. And right now, you don't have a whole lot to root for if you're a Browns fan. And guys like Nick Chubb are few and far between, and he is the center of everything that we've done.
Yeah, so obviously that's something that's not going to happen seriously until the springtime. But I just want it on the record now, December 16th, as we tape this show, Nick Chubb should be back with the Cleveland Browns next year. If the Browns had any remnants of sense left in them in this crazy analytical world, I'm not sure that they do. But when you look at Nick Chubb and what a model teammate, what a model citizen that he's been to this city, this organization for the last how many years, when we've been forced to deal with the cesspool that is Deshaun Watson. We'll get to that later in the show. Nick Chubb meant so much to that locker room. He meant so much to his teammates. Hell, I think he meant a lot to the coaching staff and how much they enjoyed his presence and his leadership being in that building every day. It would be a disservice to Browns fans. It would be a disservice to Nick Chubb if the Browns weren't to find a way to bring him back. I hope Nick Chubb is back, and we'll just leave it there because that's really all there is to say today.
Also, back to what we were talking about before, one of the few good guitar smashes was him coming out, wearing the mask, donning the mask. He inspired everybody in the stadium that day. So when I say get rid of the guitar smash, Nick, that goes on the Hall of Fame as one of the best of the guitar smashes.
Alrighty, well, that brings us into our next headline, and this one comes before the game even kicked off on Sunday from friend of show Mary Kay Cabot reporting the Browns still believe Deshaun Watson can play at a high level, and they're reportedly bringing him back for next year. Now, Chris, this was something that you said on our show last week. You expected Deshaun Watson to be back with the Browns next year. What do you make of that report from Mary Kay Cabot this past weekend?
This should be like insect repellent for season ticket holders right now. I mean, to hear that this guy's coming back next year, if I'm looking at renewing my season tickets, I'm thinking, maybe not this year. And there are some people in my party who are making that decision right now because everything we've seen on the field has not been encouraging, and that's putting it mildly right now. And we haven't seen anything out of him that makes you think that he can take that next step to be the Deshaun Watson that he was brought in to be, and he's far from it. I say you go young, you bring in somebody else, have them at least compete and hopefully win the job over Deshaun Watson. I don't think there's any getting rid of the guy right now. You certainly can't keep him away from the club because you've got the Players Association. So we're really stuck. We're stuck as fans. We're stuck as season ticket holders. And I'm hoping maybe something can emerge, maybe some creativity, or we can somehow get out of this quandary that we're in right now as Cleveland Browns fans.
Yeah, it's an albatross. I mean, it really is. And here's my creative path forward. And the more that I think about this, the more that I think this is what it has to come down to. And I get, because of the $175 million that's still owed to Deshaun Watson, he's probably going to be back just as nothing more than a formality. He has to be back because they owe him all of that money. Here's what I think you do, though, Chris. He's recovering from an Achilles injury. We know how much he's struggled to return from injuries that are much less severe than an Achilles tear. I think you open this thing up next year in training camp when you arrive to the Greenbrier and you say, we've got a good old competition on our hands, and it's Deshaun Watson versus who? Take your pick of the litter. It could be a rookie quarterback. If you could get Shedeur Sanders, awesome. It's Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders. If it's a vet, if it's Kirk Cousins, if it's Sam Darnold, if it's Jameis Winston, it's a competition in training camp for the Browns. Whoever the competitor needs to win that competition, and then you could have Deshaun Watson go away from there. That's my path forward throughout all of this, is hosting a little bit of a phony QB competition this offseason that Watson will ultimately lose to ensure that he never plays another snap in Cleveland again, because you're exactly right. They can't expect to trot him out there week 1 next year and for people to show up. This past week was the emptiest that I've seen the parking lot at our studios at Burke Lakefront Airport. The Muni lot was a ghost town. That stadium, there were more little girls with their dads in there hoping to see Taylor Swift than there were Cleveland Browns fans. It will be an absolute ghost town and even more of a graveyard than it is right now come week 1 next year, because I have had people tweet at me that they're canceling their season tickets. They're done with this team if Deshaun Watson is coming back. All right, in lighter news, Cavs schedule is about to get a little bit tougher. Got to talk some Cavs before we bring our friend Timmy Richards into the show. This week, the Cavs play the Bucks, who have won 12 of their last 15. The 76ers, who have won 4 of their last 6. Paul George and Tyrese Maxey are both out. And then that West Coast trip next week all starts off with the Utah Jazz. So,
well, the thing
fun week for the Cavs. At least we have the Cavs.
And I'm going to be looking forward to Max Strus eventually getting back into the fold here. It's been rumored he was going to play last week. He hasn't played yet. He's somebody who will be coming back into the fold very shortly here for the Cavs and probably step right into that starting lineup. And it'll be interesting to see once that happens how this team is going to respond, because the team has really melded very, very well so far this season, and it has just exceeded all the expectations. And you hope that Max Strus is going to give us some necessary minutes because, as we know, the NBA season is very long, and we've gotten a lot of contributions from a lot of wing players. Max Strus can continue to add to that. So I think this should be an interesting time for the Cavs, and it's really looking for whether we can take the next step here now on what will be a pretty brutal swing.
Straight ahead, we're talking Buckeyes. The 97 ones. Timmy Richards joining us on the Big Play Cleveland Show. Don't go anywhere. All of that and more right after this. Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show. Today's featured interview is brought to you by our friends over at Garage Beer. Garage Beer has you covered all football season long. It's the perfect beer for tailgates, watch parties, or even just watching the game alone in your garage. It's flavored beer. It is Garage Beer. And now we're welcoming in a very special guest, host of the Buckeyes Show, Mr. Timmy Hall, joining us on the Big Play Cleveland Show. Timmy, what's the vibes like out there in Columbus? Big big week ahead for you guys here as the Buckeyes get ready to host the Volunteers in the college football playoff.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Hope everything's going well up there in Cleveland, up in the land, down in Columbus. We are getting ready for a week unlike any other. God, to sound like Jim Nantz right there. Yeah, but we have never had a playoff game before. This is same for everybody. That is going to, the other three host sites that are going to take part in this too. But, you know, I think as a consolation for not having the regular season that the Buckeyes wanted to have, obviously, it's weird because the last time they were out on the football field, it was still an inexcusable loss. It's unacceptable the way that they played against Michigan. The fact that they had a 3-game losing skid and a chance to go to the Big Ten championship, a chance to check off the first 2 of 3 goals that they always set for themselves. It's to win the Michigan game, it's to win the Big Ten championship, and then to win a national championship. They went 0 for 2 just because they lost to a 6-win Michigan team at home. So it is still in the back of my mind. It is. And I'm wondering how this team is going to respond. And it's an SEC squad. So there's a lot in the balance here. First ever home college football playoff game, taking on a Tennessee team that you're a bit unfamiliar with. So I know that the offense has to be ready to roll, unlike the way they were rolling in that last game. So we'll see what happens here this week, guys.
So let's dive into that matchup a little bit. How do you think the Buckeyes match up against this Tennessee Volunteers team?
I think they match up fine. You know, I think they match up with basically everybody that they go up against, Chris. And even though you're going to talk about the one area with the matchup where they didn't look great, and that's I think the offensive line and the defensive line, you can say is another problem area as they go up against a Tennessee team that's pretty stout up front as well. Now, I think we all know that there were workarounds for that. And when you have the unbelievable talent on the outside that Ohio State has had, I mean, every time that they were choosing to look in the direction of number 4, Jeremiah Smith, good things were happening. It was either a play or he was drawing a pass interference flag. So as far as I'm concerned, if you have single coverage with Jeremiah Smith, that is always a matchup win right there. I don't care who is in the secondary for the opposition, but the one tricky component right now is the injury issues that Ohio State's had on the offensive line. And I think you're hearing a couple of new names like Luke Montgomery and Joshua Padilla, a couple of interior linemen that might shake things up. The last time we talked about it was almost like a little thing called "You'll See," what Ryan Day told us what we would look at this week. So there could be a shakeup on the offensive line, but I don't think it's an excuse because I think they should still be able to run the football with their talent and whoever wins those jobs going into this week and do what you're great at. Throw the football. I mean, I know we got the run the damn ball hats that Seth McLaughlin, who is the Remington winner, started to circulate down here, and I'm all for that. That's great. But if you can't, then throw the damn ball because we know that the Buckeyes can be really, really good at that, and they'll win all those matchups.
97.1 The Fans. Timmy Hall is our guest. Timmy, we appreciate you joining us. You mentioned that upsetting finish to the season for Ohio State and that loss against Michigan. What should we expect out of Ryan Day and the boys? How do they respond after such a bad taste in our mouths to end the season for Ohio State?
I wish I could tell you how this was going to look, but as far as I'm concerned, see, I'm already formulating my plan for next year for how I attack the Michigan game. So as far as this coaching staff and how they perform in big games, that might be, more than what Chris asked about the matchups. You would think that it would come down to that, right? Where it's our players, their players. Buckeyes are a 7-point favorite. You're at home, even though this is going to be a weird kind of home game because Ross Bjork was on our station last week and made some headlines about what he said about Ryan Day being back no matter what. And we focus a little bit too much on the results instead of the process. That one kind of pinged people. Yeah. So, and not in a great way, but it is the way that this coaching staff tightens up in big games is one of the things that I'm going to be watching. I've already decided in my head I'm not going to be picking the Buckeyes to win the Michigan game next year. Because I have to see it now. I don't care if the Buckeyes win the national championship and start 11-0 next year. When they go to Ann Arbor, I won't be picking the win just because I don't know how to diagnose that football game anymore. I'm done with it. So I don't know what to expect. I like Ohio State in this first round matchup against Tennessee. I don't know how I feel after that. If they will match up with Oregon and have that rematch chance. I just don't know. This is the big thing, how this coaching staff performs in these big football games.
Let's talk a little bit about the atmosphere around this game. What are you expecting on Saturday? We've heard reports that a lot of Tennessee Volunteers fans were able to access the code, which I guess wasn't very creatively made. So they were able to get a lot of tickets in the shoe. So we expect a lot of people coming up from down south.
CFB. Let me plug that in there. Oh, it worked.
How does that happen, first of all? And then second of all, you got a lot of online resellers going on right now. How many of those are going to end up in Buckeye fans' hands versus Tennessee fans? What do you think the vibes are going to be like on Saturday?
I know I'm curious about that as well, Chris. I think there was a report where the two presidents were chatting. So it was Tennessee's president had a quick convo with Ted Carter at Ohio State. And I think the percentage that he had heard was 30%-ish, expecting about 30% of the stadium to be decked out.
30,000 Vols fans there.
Yeah, 30,000 potentially decked out in orange. Maybe it's more than that. I mean, I don't know. They really are pushing this, aren't they, on social media this past week about how many tickets they got, how they're going to invade Columbus. And I would be hoping for the exact same thing if the shoe were on the other foot, if it was Ohio State going down there to Neyland Stadium, for a nice little airplane bottle game. But this is the situation that they're dealt right now. Apparently some tickets did get out. That code was released. I don't know how something like that happens. The whole ticket industry anyway is effed. It's completely insane. Whether you're talking about jacking the prices up when, you've been a season ticket holder. I get how, premium pricing and everything, but when I'm hearing from some of my buddies who are season ticket holders and it's double the price for this game, it really makes you stop and think, are you going to be able to buy those tickets? It's a historical game. So obviously supply and demand is always a thing, but I know people that still sell their Michigan tickets to pay for the entire season plan. That's a thing that people do. Like if you've already been to an OSU Michigan game and, people that chose to sell them this year made a good decision. So they got to miss the 13-10 and pay for all their tickets. But it could be crazy. I mean, it's a home game, but it might feel more like when the Buccaneers played at home in the Super Bowl, that type of home game.
It's supposed to be weird too, because isn't the NCAA controlling some of the in-game stuff? I know that
or the CFP.
I know
CFP.
What you mean. Okay,
kind
of
like if you're a host site for an NCAA tournament game where it's in your stadium, but you're gonna have to be playing intro videos for Tennessee. That's just things like that are gonna have to happen. But we got pyro and drones.
That's right.
It's going to be awesome.
I can't wait for the drones to come out. That should be interesting. I don't think that we've had anything in Columbus with a real drone show, have we?
No. Yeah. I mean, we had fighter jets, fly over the stadium, but we can't get drones. We can get the jets to come over from Dayton.
Sure.
But we can't get the drones yet until now. So we're going to see it.
So what do you think? You had Ross Bjork in there last week. He said that, hey, Ryan Day is going to be safe. What do you think? I mean, boots on the ground there in Columbus. What is your feel? How far does Ryan Day have to go in this tournament to save his job?
Now, look, I think the question of what should happen and what will actually happen are completely different things, because some of the people that I talk to, and it does blow my mind, it boggles my mind, they think that he could go out and get hammered in this very next game and finish the season accomplishing none of their goals with this team. I cannot tell you guys.
0 for 3.
In college football is different now. It is changing, but I don't think that matters, because I still think that Ohio State is one of the top 5 teams that is equipped to win in this newfound college football. So I don't think the expectations should change. We could keep talking about that as an excuse of, there's a lot of great transfer players that are going to other programs as well and expanding the college football playoff. It brings more teams to the party. I don't really care about that. If you win nothing with everybody that you recruited, they brought Caleb Downs to this team. They brought Caleb Downs. They've got Jeremiah Smith on this roster. They got to go out and select a quarterback. And I don't know if Will Howard is the massive upgrade over Kyle McCord like I thought he would be, but he is an upgrade. He is a better player. And his numbers aren't insanely different than what they were at Kansas State last year. So I am questioning that a little bit, but I think that's more about, the offensive play calling above anything else. But should Ryan Day be on the hot seat if they lose to Tennessee? Absolutely. I don't think there's any Buckeye fan that would argue that would disagree. This is not a knee-jerk response, knee-jerk reaction. You lost the Michigan game once or twice. This is 4 straight years. You don't even have the directions to Lucas Oil loaded into the Google Maps anymore. It's been such a long time since they've been in a Big Ten championship game. That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. But will they? I really don't know. With what Ross Bjork said and what some of my guys tell me about the money situation, $38 million buyout, what you got to pay a new coach. I don't know. I don't really want to hear that. It's the cost of doing business. If it's not happening in the current regime, you owe it to everybody, and it all could change on a dime. What Ross Bjork said last week might not mean anything if they do lose the game, and the complexion totally changes. And a couple of people with gigantic checkbooks that pay a lot of money to Ohio State athletics, maybe their minds change about it, and then you got a different situation.
Timmy, we need a quick score prediction out of you. Ohio State, Tennessee, before we let you go. How do you think this one goes down?
I said it before. I'm picking the Buckeyes in this one for everything that we talk about. I think they're going to be able to check this one. I don't know how it's going to look in the second round against Oregon, but I'll go 34-24. Ohio State knocking off Tennessee.
All right, a Buckeye victory. Huge thanks to Mr. Timmy Hall for joining us on the Big Play Cleveland Show. We got more right after this. Fill in the blank on the Big Play Cleveland Show, brought to you by our friends over at Northeast Factory Direct. Guys, we've been telling you about Northeast Factory Direct for months, and now is the time to get there. Go to Northeast Factory Direct today. The holiday season is coming up next week. You want to start the new year with some home renovation projects, and they've got your whole house covered with kitchen cabinets, bedroom sets, dining room tables, hot tubs, sofas, so much more. You could shop online anytime by going to northeastfactorydirect.com, but you got to check them out in person. It's truly a unique furniture buying experience. Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, North Canton. Make sure to ask for that extra special Big Play bonus when you shop in store, because they're going to hook you up with an extra special discount for being a fan of the Big Play Network. If you're looking for an even better deal, you could check out their outlet centers in Euclid or Canton. Again, make sure to ask for that Big Play bonus for an extra special hookup. Now's the time. Visit them, Northeast Factory Direct. Go check them out today. Chris, in non-football related news, the Cleveland Guardians traded Andreas Jimenez.
Yeah.
The Guards' Andreas Jimenez trade was blank.
It was disappointing to me. I like the player that he is, especially defensively, and really what he means to this clubhouse. One of the reasons the Guardians were able to go on that run last year, I think, is because of the chemistry in that clubhouse and through that locker room. And he was a big part of that. And obviously, from a defensive standpoint, not only was his glove good, but then also playing a position like second base where you are one of the battery right there, right up the middle, that really drives everything defensively that you do. You hate to break that up. I understand, we have Travis Bazanas coming up, and that's going to be the next on the horizon right now. But for right now, boy, it really is kind of gutting to see a guy like that, very much a fan favorite, leave in the offseason. An offseason where right now it doesn't look like we're getting a whole lot coming back, and we're just getting bad news.
So that's the big thing, right? Is Andreas Jimenez loved Cleveland. Cleveland loved Andreas Jimenez. It was a perfect match. you never like to part with a all-world glove defensively like Jimenez. I think what this came down to was dollars and cents. And I know Guards fans aren't going to want to hear that. Yeah. It looks like it was a penny pinching move. To lose a fan favorite because they're trying to save money, that hurts, especially after the ballpark was packed all season long. But what I will say about this trade is you get Luis Ortiz back. And what were we saying all season long, Chris? The starting pitching into the offseason was just putrid to watch there at the end. I think Luis Ortiz from the Pittsburgh Pirates gives Cleveland a reliable starting arm. It buys you time for Shane Bieber to return off that injured list. You get a couple of prospects thrown in there, and it just paves the way for Travis Bazzana, who now seems to be sticking at that second base. And I think we're going to see him sooner than later. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. So it'll be interesting to see. I do like the fact that we're starting to shore up the starting pitching here on this club, and this was a move to do so. That makes me feel better going into the offseason, especially with so many unknowns. But fan favorite, hate to lose him, and really puts a bad taste in my mouth that ultimately I think it came down to dollars and cents.
Yeah, and probably more of that to come when you look at that roster. I mean, Josh Naylor still out there. I can't imagine he's starting first base on opening day. So more to come there. We'll keep things with the Guards as Tom Hamilton received the Hall of Fame's Frick Award.
That's exactly why these awards are made, why they're invented, is so that guys like Tom Hamilton can get one of them, because Tom Hamilton has meant so much to this town. And I'll tell you what, from a personal standpoint, I don't know how many springs, summers, and early falls he has babysat me through doing yard work, running the kids all around, just putzing about my day. I'll have Tom Hamilton on in the background, and he always brings the color, the insight, and just the interest to these ball games. And as you know, there is a lot of dead space in baseball. You know, I love the game, but there is a lot of dead space. And boy, he makes that interesting. The stories that he brings to the table, and then as well, the actual action on the field. You know, we all think of the down goes Anderson, right? He is right there. When something happens, man, he makes it exciting. I think nationally, whenever there's a home run, they are just scrambling to get that Tom Hamilton call. And you see it on social media. As soon as something happened, give me the hammy call, give me the hammy call, give me the hammy call. Tom Hamilton is a treasure. This is awesome, and he deserves all the recognition he gets.
A true icon, a true Cleveland legend, 49th winner of the award, and there's only one award recipient per year. Some other notable winners: Vin Scully, Bob Costas, Al Michaels. So our own Tom Hamilton goes into some pretty elite company there in the broadcasting game. And yeah, we are very lucky to have him here in Cleveland. Hey, we're going to step aside. More of Fill in the Blank right here on the Big Play Cleveland Show. Don't go anywhere. Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show. Nick Padone, lucky to be joined with Chris McNeil, breaking down all things Cleveland sports. We got to keep going Browns, though. The Browns need to win blank more games this season for Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry to keep their jobs, Chris.
This is a clown question. Are we really using that as some kind of an analysis and referendum on these guys, these last three meaningless games? I mean, if you haven't made a decision at this point, there's nothing in these last three games that should really change it. In my opinion, there needs to be changes throughout this organization. I actually think it starts with the ownership. We're not going to be able to change ownership anytime soon. But I think that same ownership group is also intent on bringing back both Kevin Stefanski as well as Andrew Berry. So I don't anticipate any changes, and I certainly don't think anything in these last three games is going to change the thinking of this organization on those two and their futures.
You know, I look at it like this. Last week I said I thought that it was a good idea to bring Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry back. It sure seems like the Browns are leaning that way. Through some of the leaks and the reports that we're hearing out of Berea, it seems like they want to try to work towards continuity and finding a path forward with this regime. The one thing that I'll tell you today is that in life and in sports, things change. And the more that I sat there and I watched the Browns get decimated offensively by the Kansas City Chiefs, the more I thought to myself, this is year 5 of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski paired together. It looked a lot closer to year 1 of Mike Pettin and Ray Farmer.
Illegal formations, offsides, penalties, lack of preparation, all over the place.
And when Jimmy Haslam was stopped by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler for a quick, brief interview after the winter meetings that happened with all of the owners, he said they were going to assess everything this offseason. And right now, I don't know that you could blame Jimmy Haslam, D. Haslam, whoever's involved in these decisions, if they ultimately sat down at the end of the season, after having conversations with everybody, and decided that the path forward was not Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry, I wouldn't blame them if they decided to change their minds. Because you look at this schedule, you got Cincinnati up next. You got the Miami Dolphins after that. And
at home, Nick.
The season
can't wait.
Against the Baltimore Ravens. It's hard to envision a world where the Browns win any of those 3 games. If it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson, if it's Jameis Winston, Jesus Christ himself could descend from the heavens and play quarterback. It's just not going to look the way that we want it to look. So I wouldn't blame them if they change their minds, Chris.
I think you're going to see some sort of a token move. I think you're going to see somebody like a Bubba Ventrone get cut, get jettisoned in the offseason. Obviously, the special teams have been horrendous for this team. We had another big turnover in this game. The kicking game's been very, very bad. We've now got kickers taking mental days as a result of it. So I think they're going to do a token move like that, get rid of Ventrone. They're going to keep the core together, and they're going to move on. And I don't know. To me, as a Browns fan going into next year, that doesn't give me a whole lot of hope. Running this thing back, both at quarterback, at head coach, at GM, at any other positions in that front office right now, really doesn't make me very optimistic on the future of the Cleveland Browns, and especially these next couple of years.
And that's what I guess I'm imploring them to look at. When they say that they're going to look at everything, I believe that they're going to look at everything. I think Kevin Stefanski's a good coach. I do. I think he's only going to get better as things progress. But when you sit down and you look at everything, I do find myself questioning and wondering, is Kevin Stefanski the best coach for where this organization is right now? And this organization is in a very weird and probably dark place when you figure that, they're going to be paying a guy $175 million to sit at home. I wonder if the team could use somebody that's a little bit more of a motivator. I wonder if you could use a guy a little bit closer to a Dan Campbell, a Mike Vrabel, if you will, to really rally the troops and get buy-in. I think the guys like Kevin Stefanski. I just don't know that they fight for him and really listen to him. And it's exactly reflected in the penalties, the dumb mistakes that happen on a weekly basis. And here we are in week 16 talking about the same things that we were talking about last year. And that's where things start to get concerning.
I don't know if you've watched any of the Hard Knocks so far, but I mean, it's a propaganda piece for Mike Tomlin, right? A lot of this thing. But Mike Tomlin has also done a really nice job, I'll tell you what, of motivating his team. You could tell he connects with his team. He gets the best out of his team. And boy, that's a model who I'd like to have in here as a motivator for the Cleveland Browns. And you haven't seen it. We're not prepared. We're not a team that you think every week can beat anybody. It's much the opposite. We're beating ourselves. And that starts at the head coach. And I would like to see some sort of an upgrade. Either Kevin gets better or we got to move on.
Well said. Huge thanks to our friends over at Northeast Factory Direct. Again, you can check them out online, northeastfactorydirect.com, but you got to stop in store. Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, North Canton. When you're shopping in store, ask about that Big Play bonus. They're going to give you an extra special hookup. More of the Big Play Cleveland Show right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We have Would You Rather. Would You Rather is brought to you by Fairway Ford. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in Ohio. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s and Super Duty trucks, and they won't be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. This Saturday, December 21st, Fairway's hosting their Fill the Trunk Fill the trunk for a charity event. They will be accepting donations for the Animal Charity of Ohio from 10 to 2. So come out to Fairway Ford to help a great cause. You can even get your pet's picture taken with Santa. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com.
Yeah, they were telling us they've got over 600 trucks available on their lot right now. It's worth the short drive over to Canfield. Go check them out, fairwayfordohio.com. Chris, would you rather watch the Ohio State-Tennessee game from the shoe or from your couch? This was a big discussion earlier in the show with our guest, Timmy Hall. Where would you rather watch this game this weekend?
I think I'd rather watch it from my couch. I mean, I love the atmosphere right there in the shoe. I love going to Skull Sessions. I love tailgating out there. It's going to be cold. It's going to be a night game. I'm getting older. I'm not up for that anymore. I'd rather watch it at home on my couch, have my beverage of choice right there, have my food right there, ready to go, and be able to sit there and take the whole thing in.
Chris, well said. I would also rather watch from the comfort of my own house. No way would I sit out there in the cold in Columbus. I do think that it's going to be a very fun game. We're actually giving away 2 tickets on the Big Play Sports Network. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media pages. The link to that giveaway will be in our bio. So if you're tuning in and you're catching the show early, make sure to go enter for your chance to win some Buckeye playoff tickets. That'll be pretty cool. Chris, would you rather the Browns bring back Nick Chubb and have him finish his career in Cleveland, or would you rather give him a chance to join a title contender right now?
I'd leave that up to Nick Chubb. I think at this point he has earned the right to have that choice. And if he wants to end his career here in Cleveland, I'd give him that opportunity. If he wants to go somewhere else, then give him that opportunity as well. He's a legend here in this town. In a team that hasn't given us a whole lot of bright spots, he is that bright spot. So I say you give him the choice. Let him ride off into the sunset, however that might look.
Yeah, and knowing what's to come for this Browns team and that it might not be the shortest of turnarounds, or maybe not as short as we thought, I don't think anybody would hold it against Nick Chubb if he decided he wanted to go contend for a Super Bowl. Obviously, he's accomplished so much here in Cleveland. It's similar to Joe Thomas, when he almost had the opportunity to go play with
the
Peyton
Patriots.
Manning or Tom Brady and the Patriots. He kind of had his option, decided to stay here in Cleveland. Chubb turns 29 this month. We know how it works with running backs. I don't think anybody would hold it against one Nick Chubb. We asked this question before Steelers week, but it's time to bring it back again here. Would you rather the Browns end the Bengals season by beating them this week, or lose this game for the sake of draft position? I want to take this one first. Shout out to our guys, James Rapine, Andrew Fox Miller on Enter the Jungle down there in Cincinnati. I want the Browns to lose this game. Yeah. Right now, it is a colossal failure. If you only finish the season with 3 wins, 3-11, as bad as this season's been, and you're finishing outside the top 5, the Browns have to lose out to secure themselves a top 5 draft pick. That's what's going to be the most valuable thing to this organization moving forward, not beating the Cincinnati Bengals. Let their dream season live on.
Yeah, these tiebreakers are crazy right now. Even though we've only got 3 wins, all those other 3-win teams are going to pick ahead of us right now in the draft. So we need to continue losing. I think we've entered the preseason once again, the preseason at the end of the season. These games don't matter to me. They don't matter to the team. They do matter for some talent evaluations, but ultimately what I'm looking for is get that draft capital. I want to move up the draft board, so continue to lose out, Cleveland Browns.
And if the NFL draft was held today, they would currently have the 7th overall pick. That's not worth it. That's not worth all the suffering that we went through this year. They've got to find a way to keep losing these games.
Tear this thing down.
Tear this thing down. And I think
down
they're
to the
going to do
bones.
just that. I mean, there is no reason for Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, none of these guys to be playing significant snaps. It's going to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and it's going to be, a cast of backups to find out who's going to be on this roster next year. Huge thanks again to our friends over at Fairway Ford, Ohio. Make sure to take that short drive to Canfield. You're going to save thousands on a brand new truck. Head down to their dealership or fairwayford.com today. Huge thanks to everyone for tuning in to the Big Play Cleveland Show. Like I said, make sure you download that Big Play Sports Network app. Tune into our show and all of our fun interviews that we put together for you guys every single week. We'll be back next week. Until then, we'll see you.
Go Buckeyes!